Good afternoon, everyone. May 31st, 2020. Tomorrow's June 1st. 21 days till summer's officially here. But at least it's nice out. So, today I want to talk about one sad week in the United States that's kind of continuing with protests, which are understandable. Not the violent type, but protesting makes sense. Violence doesn't. And, being a humanities professor for all these years, and let alone, a professor of philosophy with it, it's hard for me to see this. And I hear people always saying we came this far, we're more humane, and Nietzsche, makes reference to humanity as, there has never been a so humane generation. And during that time, my God, fascism was trying to take over Germany and all this stuff. He's being completely sarcastic or sardonic. And it's still the same, going on 200 years later. That would have been the 1850s to now. So, it's been happening. So humanity's always struggled. Obviously, issues of race for some people are still really significant. We got a high level of ignorance. And what was proven by the Minneapolis Police Department and those 4 officers was they weren't trained properly. There were no ranking officers on the street during that whole time. I saw no sergeants or lieutenants, captains, or inspectors or anyone. If you see protests like in New York last night or in Dayton last night, the ranking officers have white shirts. They're not just sergeants and patrol officers, not that those jobs aren't the ones that get the work done most of the time. They're lieutenants and captains and inspectors and sometimes even higher. It just depends. So you got to have the right. Anyone in law enforcement, my cousin Ryan is in law enforcement in Florida. And he's a helicopter pilot and a night patrol sergeant on the road. And it's a busy county in South Florida. And the reality is, he's like, it was just brutal, dumb. It could have been stopped a million ways, and it wasn't. So what I'm seeing is with all these protests and saying, and, people are pent up because of coronavirus and all this, we got to look at the motivations. Obviously, we have to protest when anything like this happens. It shouldn't be violent. We should be logical, have some sort of compassion towards humanity and other people's needs outside of our own. When we trash places, then no one can use it. I mean, my God, they destroyed the neighborhood in Minneapolis in the 3rd precinct, and they'll never be able to go to the grocery there now forever. It'll take forever for that to come back in the inner city. It takes forever. Sometimes it never comes back. And so the elderly will suffer and people will suffer. Now, who's inspiring this? Well, we know the protesters are paid. They're from out of state. This goes back to Ferguson, Missouri. About 7 years ago in the summer, it kind of started. Black Lives Matter. This was right around the time when everybody was seeing the clowns. We're seeing clowns all over the United States. And it started out, and this became totally not clowning, although those clowns were scary for some people. They thought it was creepy or some bullshit. I'm like, yeah, I got a freaking, 9mm with your name on it, Johnny. Bozo come to your door or mess with the children. Oh, my God. So maybe a 45 for that. But the reality is, I hope he's up close and make it easy on me. But the reality is these protesters are paid from the outside. In Ferguson, in Missouri, they showed that over 75% of protesters, 80% of protesters were not even from the area of Ferguson. Were not even from Missouri in many cases. Greenville, South Carolina happened after this. Same thing, protesters from out of state, out of the area. Charlotte, Virginia, in North Carolina, it happened time and again, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all over. Wherever there is a liberal, progressive, in this case, leftist, Democrat government, they don't know how to police properly to ensure people's safety. They're uneducated on law enforcement and ignorant to it, that you put higher ranking people on the streets to protect the citizens and the officers and everyone's integrity. You got to have smarter people there than they did at this scene. And more than that, George Soros and these people, these nefarious people connected to the Bilderberg Group, connected to the Illuminati, these ideas and ideals are real. Soros, Nazi Germany as a teenager, young teen, turning Jews over to the Nazis, said it was one of the best times of his life. He's a Jew himself. He's been on a Russian hit list for over 20 years. He's 84 years old. George Soros. He disrupts government anywhere he can. He likes to send like 5,000 migrants into Hungary during harvest and F up their system. This guy's a menace. He is Dr. Evil. He's connected. And George Soros, the Russians have had him on a hit list for 20 years. He's the one paying him. The 5,000 people who came from Central America to the California border were paid by George Soros. Yeah. And if anything happens to me, I would find George Soros. We got to try to love each other. I got many friends of color, black, Chinese, Japanese, name it, Native American. Of course, I'm one myself to a huge degree. What does it mean? Well, we take a moment of silence for George Floyd, who shouldn't have died, who was dead 2-3 minutes before they even let up on him. He could have been handcuffed and manacled on the feet. He wouldn't go nowhere. Was he going to run off down the street handcuffed him? You didn't manacle his feet. I mean, come on. Not trained, no officers, higher ranking. We got nefarious sources outside the United States sending people in, taking advantage of the local people, firing them up because they've been pent up. This is a Democrat plan. Pelosi, Schumer, Gavin Newsom, California, the governor. You're all in on it. We know. And California may bring in more money than any other state, but that won't be for long because your troubles are there and they're going to be getting worse. Homelessness. You need to come to your senses and start being humanist at heart instead of talking a good game and going away and counting your money. Some of the richest politicians in America, remember, are Democrats. Same though Republicans are guilty here. Look at it. What does it say? Of all Americans who are millionaires, right? Think about it. All of America, 5% are millionaires. 5% of Americans are millionaires. And and when they do it, how many politicians are millionaires? It's 51%. So slightly over 2.5%, half, a little over half or more, are millionaires. And that's not inherently bad. But sometimes their motivations get misled. And if we're going to have a bleeding heart government, we're never going to have any way to go. Antifa, I got to say, anti-fascist, pro-communist, give me a break. Anyone knows socialism, communism almost always dissolve into fascism. If they haven't came that way, straight up. It's just like Red China, communist China. They're still China. They're still the enemy. No, not the people of China, but the government of China is still the enemy. Just like the government of Russia or any other government that doesn't work with us or follow treaties or any of these things. The reality is, when the bat comes back to roost, sometimes, you have to friggin' kill it. So reality is this. What does it mean? We got to protect ourselves. We got to protect our citizens. We got to get to the sources that are corrupting our government on the highest level by infusing money in to areas where somebody dies like George Floyd, a guy who should have never died. It should have never happened. And then Soros and these people infuse money into the area. Start riots, start protests. They don't care. They walk away. Some people get paid. There you are. I hope everybody has a good day and a good week. I know I'm gonna. Y'all take care. Peace out, y'all.